So then it's like, we're just gonna shut down and force you to update. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So I guess it should be updated though. It says we're live. Looks like we have 2 viewers, but I think one of them is me maybe. So I don't know. Looks like we're doing this though. So hopefully something's happening here. Um, but
I don't know if Matt's still in. Matt, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Brett, do you have a link that we could post to share with all of the wonderful viewers?
yes. Let's
It's twitch.tv/HunterWarrior.
yeah,
Okay.
I'll post it in the thread though. Just to let all of our fans and whatnot know about it. Let's see here.
Roundtable done right.
Yeah, yeah. How did Brian Hunter forget his catchphrase there? I guess he probably
What happened?
probably hasn't done a done right in several years. I don't know. Does Deck Tech even still exist, really? Kinda, sorta.
I don't know. I haven't tried to go on there in a while. And the last time I did, I couldn't find anything because it was after it got hacked.
It got hacked?
Yeah.
Oh gosh. What
And then I couldn't look people up by their names. And that was the day that I ended up just reading a bunch of old K-Todd tournament reports.
Huh. Okay. Well, anyway, we're live, presumably. Uh, T Beastie is in the chat, so good to know we have someone who's not one of the three of us watching. All right.
Word.
So anyway, I guess we'll kind of go down the list of cards, sort of like we did last time. Just everyone can kind of chime in with some different perspectives. One thing maybe I was thinking, just kind of at the beginning, Matt, if you want to maybe talk about this a little bit, just kind of the overall goals from a design perspective. I know it looks like there's a decent number of player cards in this set, so certainly the design team sometimes takes sort of a backseat creatively in terms of an overall direction on a player set. That said, as far as I can see, there's kind of two takeaways from the set, whether they were intentional or just sort of that's how it shook out. One, of course, and Reed sort of in the pre-production meeting mentioned Admiral's orders kind of getting a lot of attention between the errata to entanglements and then some of the other cards. Is I guess the question there is just sort of is that how long has something like that been in the works? We've seen the rise to prominence of Admiral's orders, over the last few years. Specifically, they've been pretty key in some TTO decks, entanglements decks, things like that. The other, takeaway is, there's been kind of maybe not as much since the reset, but this long-standing idea that we need to speed up games, or at least reduce sort of damage mitigation. One way to do that, of course, is to add force loss to various card texts, and just sort of looking through the list here, there's a lot of kind of Sabine, Kylo already exists, but he gets a helper. There's the Drain +1 with a female card. Even stuff like Ethano or the Dice guy, have these conditional force loss things. Was that all sort of an overarching goal that design has had over the last several sets to work some of that type of stuff in, to maybe speed up games, or is that's just sort of a direction stuff has gone, because they decided to stop just saying every card adds a battle destiny or whatever.
So I'll talk first about the kind of the whole set makeup. You mentioned there seemed to be a lot of player cards in here. There's not a significant amount of player cards. This isn't like set 5 where it was almost all player cards and a couple other design cards thrown in. But there are some player cards in here. We also included some stuff that we thought was appropriate and kind of needed for the meta in some ways, and that I think the Admiral's Orders cards fall into that category. I think thematic fill was a big thing. We wanted to finish up a lot of the Rogue One guys if we could, add a little bit more of the Episode 7 stuff if we could, and then the last part I would say is prep for some future stuff that we're planning. And I think one example of that is the hologram for Kylo Ren. We are planning on having an objective that's centered a lot around Kylo Ren coming out soon. So we wanted to kind of tease that a little bit with this hologram, Spectre the Supreme Leader. So there is a lot going on here, but I think the reason why it seems like there's not as much cohesion between a lot of the cards, this is one thing that I saw a lot of people were discussing on the forums. And I think it's because we didn't want something that was really big to shake things up right before Worlds. Like we had a kind of tight timeline. So instead of having like a big theme or a new objective for each side or something like that, we wanted to kind of keep it lower key before Worlds, hold back on a few of the objectives that we've been working on, get some more work with them, make sure they're more refined by the time we release them, and kind of keep this a little bit more controlled. So another thing that I'm going to talk about in a future design blog, dealing with that set cohesion, is the difficulties of trying to make a whole set around one, overarching theme like Decipher used to do with Endor or Jabba's Palace. Like that kind of thing is very difficult to do now in this game just because of how many different source materials we have to pull from and the number of resources we have, and in addition, our desire to reduce card bloat in a lot of ways. So that's something that's kind of a different tangent, and I'll probably get into that in a couple of weeks in a new design blog. But the last point of your original opening was about the speed of games and direct damage. And it's not something directly that we were trying to do, but we felt that it was appropriate in a lot of places. It is a mechanic that is, it's easier to test because you can kind of see the use cases for it. You can see requirements for it, and it's as long as you keep that number low, like a 1 usually. In some cases, you can see there's some conditional 2s. It's pretty okay. It's from a design and balance perspective, it's good, but it's not really like we didn't go back and discuss and say, hey, let's put more kings on cards, but in some ways, like with the random resistance character, it works nicely, and I think it kind of gives each card like a different flavor in some ways.
Right. Well, each side of the Force is getting a character with decent stats that straight up says all Admiral's Orders are suspended. And Admiral's Order is one of the easiest cards to counter or cancel of your opponents. Just play one of your own. So what gives?
So that is something that we did talk about and something we were directly planning to try to do here. We had a lot of ideas floating around. Like we had some ideas that were interrupts that would put an Admiral's Orders in use pile, but then we just said, well, why not just play an Admiral's Orders at that point? There were some other ideas about characters, putting them used, and we settled on the final product that we have, which is the General Leia and the Grand Admiral Thrawn that suspend them. They suspend their game checks technically when they get nitty-gritty with rules. But I think the reason for this mainly is that we saw Admiral's Orders emerging as such important parts of decks, and they were, if you weren't playing your own Admiral's Orders, they were difficult to combat. So you saw, Brad mentioned earlier, TTO and IE using them to great effect. And then things like the I'll Try Spinning is another one where sometimes like that card can really just completely change games. So we did have a conscious effort to do this, and we also wanted to do it for both sides. So they each had the same access to this tool if players, deck builders, wanted to use it. We were also very conscious of making it something that you could turn on and off. We didn't want an effect that just said they're gone. We didn't want something that just blanket globally happen no matter what. So these are characters. Leia can do it from a war room, but unless she's on Hoth, she can't just, if she's there, she's kind of not doing a lot else for you at a non-battleground like that. And Thrawn has to be at a battleground site. So there are, ways of getting around them. And even Grand Admiral Thrawn, you could even play Demotion if you had some Admiral's Orders for light side that you really wanted to make sure went through. But as Reed mentioned, you can still play the good old-fashioned Death Star 2 Admiral's Orders if you want to have a counter of sorts to them. I don't know if that fully answers the question, but it is something that we did directly discuss and try to find the best way to do it. And I think we were all pretty happy with this, and I hope the players, and after playing some more games with it, like it too.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it'll change some stuff. Whether that's ends up being good or bad, I guess the results will bear themselves out. And at the end of the day, if people enjoy playing and people show up to events, that's really the only probably the best indicator we have to go on. So with that, I guess just one sort of last thing maybe before we get into the cards themselves. I don't think really the images on some of this stuff is out there. I will say the one thing, and this is sort of a shameless plug, I guess, for the PC. Go ahead and sign up for that newsletter. Because first off, it's a great effort. Chris Menzel, Thomas Papp, some others involved with that. But also, I'm pretty sure I saw the Baze Malbus image in that. Is that correct?
Yeah, there is a spoiler image in there. If you do sign up for it, you can check that out. It was also one of the cards that was spoiled at Nationals. We had some images that were there for a preview for those of you guys that showed up early for the Cube at Nationals, which I believe turned out to be 7 people from Pittsburgh. So, yeah, the images that I've seen so far are really good. I'm very excited. And one thing, as such a key member of design, I kind of lose that Christmas morning effect where I get the big reveal and see everything. And I do consciously try to stay away from the images until they're released, because that's the one thing that I can still kind of get at the last minute and get that excitement and something brand new all at once. So I haven't seen a lot of them, only the ones that we've spoiled at Nationals and maybe 1 or 2 others.
I guess, sorry to keep dragging it, but one last thing, maybe just in terms of stuff that wasn't included in this set. I mean, we'll get into some of it as we talk about cards that maybe their themes aren't fully fleshed out or whatever. But there were a couple new EPPs that we played with at the MPC. Are those still planned for a future set down the road?
No, those were part of like a premium set. So think like Enhanced Jabba's Palace or something like that, where they didn't really belong to a specific expansion, but they were part of a premium expansion. So those are available already to download. They've been tournament legal. Okay. They are good to go, but they will not be included in a future set.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. I thought they were only. Okay, I thought they were only part of the intro deck there, but good.
In fact, the clever people on graphic design even put that premium icon on them, like you see from the Enhanced Jabba's Palace and the other similar premium sets.
That's good. I like that. So I guess with that, let's jump into the cards. Basically, we'll kind of go down the list, but as cards sort of seem related, we'll skip around a little bit. We did that last time, and it seemed to work out all right. I guess I'll just start off. Director Orson Krennic, Commander Leader, Pilot, ability 3 Imperial. During your control phase, if with opponent's undercover spy, opponent loses 2 force, may not be reduced. While at a site, opponent may not cancel or modify your battle destiny draws here. Deploy 3, forfeit 7, Pilot Warrior. Alright, so we see, Matt, maybe going back to our last discussion, our last roundtable, rather, you had alluded to Krennic kind of being a foil of sorts to Jyn Erso, and we see that text sort of, come to light here. Pretty interesting. They lose 2, can't be reduced. Beyond that, just the stats, they seem probably about what would be expected, I suppose. He's an ability 3 Imperial, so he does get like a forfeit bonus from the code clearance effect. That deck's been always sort of on the fringes here and there. Um, it's good to see. For so much of the time, the game's been around. These types of guys were maybe not super playable because ability 3. They get hit by Goonie Tay, but with that not really being in the meta anymore, these types of cards can really shine. So I think it's an interesting card. I guess I don't know immediately where it fits in. It seems like something you would maybe add to an existing deck. Maybe instead of it being a theme unto its own, at least not yet. Uh, Maybe I'll throw it to Matt if you want to talk a little bit about kind of the thought process behind this, and then Reed maybe a little on kind of the playability, maybe where it slots into existing decks or new decks that it opens up.
Well, I'm eager to hear what Reed thinks too. So this, as you mentioned, was
I can go first if you like. In fact, why don't you let me go first, because I have nothing good to say about this card, and this way you can defend it after I tear it apart.
That works.
Which I'm not really going to do. I mean, I'm not going to tear it apart that bad, but this card is just going to end up being another bad card that you can put in your deck to try and chase after Jin. I think that the amount of force loss that people will actually take from this card in actual play is going to be negligible, is going to be approaching 0. People aren't going to lose force. They're not going to leave Jin sitting in front of Krennic. They'll break her cover, they'll drop somebody else, they'll battle, and then they'll kill Krennic. And then they'll get Jin out with any of the umpteen ways that Lightside has to get cards out of the lost pile, and they'll slap her back down, whether it's at the same location or at another location. He's not going to do anything. He's not going to do anything against her, anything more than any of the other bad cards that we have that you can play in your deck to chase after Jin, or so, like Probot and Ice Heart and Sniper combo. Then the last line of text is pretty much just throw on text there, reminiscent of Merrick Steele, very similar to hers, I think, is Merrick Steele a female?
I don't think so.
Okay, so very similar to his. He prevents substitution and canceling. Orson prevents canceling and modification. It's almost the same thing. It's redundant. For all the ballyhoo about this around surrounding this card, how it was held back from set 6, because you guys wanted more time with it in testing or development or whatever it was. I would have liked to have seen you guys actually get the card right, and if it was intended to be a foil to Jin, to actually have an impact against her, because this card, I don't see it having any kind of impact against Jin. She's still going to have her sight. She's still going to block out a drain out of sight in pretty much every game of Star Wars CCG until we get something good that actually works against her.
So I wouldn't say that we intended this to be the be-all, end-all answer to Undercover Spies. It is a tool. There's a number of different ways. And I see the dynamic being similar to how some of the landing clock counters exist. And I know you're not a fan of the landing clock counters either. And I'm probably not either. So the reason why I see a similarity there is because you say that they probably won't lose any force to Krennic, and that's probably true, but that means that Jin is no longer there as an undercover spy, which is kind of serving its purpose. Like if they break her cover or they move her away, then that's an answer to undercover spies. It may not be the best answer. It may not prevent them or remove them from the table, but it is a way to address it. And it's not meant to be kind of the death knell of undercover spies, but it's just another tool that players can have to counter it. And in this time, it's in the form of a character who's also a commander, can be pulled by Piet. Brad mentioned the code clearance stat boost he would get. And I think the last line of text you say is the throwaway, but actually this is something that had been tested and tossed around on a different card last set and didn't make it. But I think this is a pretty key piece of text. I mean, this will work against anything with WAP if they're trying to cancel it. He's a good answer to that. You do have your moments. They wouldn't be able to cancel with that. There's a lot of ways to modify as well. So I do think that's a very good piece of text there that we put on there to make sure that this guy does see play, even if you're not just putting it in there as solely as an undercover spy card. It does have some utility elsewhere.
See, I was just thinking of what ways does Light Side really modify battle destinies outside of OA, which is extremely case specific. WAP has been kept in check for the most part in all decks by excellent cards like Imperial Justice and A Dark Time for the Rebellion. So having an ability 3 Imperial that